guys, what's going on? This is Cyclonic here, bringing back my design critique series for its 14th episode. Finally got a few minutes this weekend to throw something together for this. So for those of you who aren't familiar, this series is just a bunch of pieces that were submitted to me mainly through Twitter, and I try to give my feedback and constructive criticism on things that I thought maybe that the artist could do better. Of course, just my opinion is just my 2 cents, and most of these pieces, there's nothing truly wrong with them. It's just always in the search for trying to improve yourself further, and a process that I'm always trying to, trying to go through. So let's get started here. This is a T-Mac or Tracy McGrady piece from when he was on the Orlando Magic. So I like the text a lot. The texture on the text is nice. The flares are cool. And then I guess we can move down here to this guy. The CZs on him seem to be fine. Kind of matches up well for me. And these little like flare things, the design behind them I think are pretty cool. Over here, we start out over here where this piece is a little bit brighter overall than this guy is, but I think it might just be my monitor screen. It looks okay. The CCs look about similar. You have these like flares and stuff coming around over him, this leaks, which is cool. My main most of my critiques on this piece are going to be around this area, just because this is such a bright spot right here, but there's nothing in this spot to really concentrate on. If I were designing the piece, I'd be trying to put the concentration on this main guy and then some backup focus on this guy. And right now it's like I see this, and then I'll see this, and then I'll go over here. And so it's a little bit of a weird thing to me to have this the flash so bright here, and then on top of that, then there should be some created depth here that there isn't. So that all kind of throws me off a little bit. So this is the main portion I think I would fix, but everything else I like how it looks. I don't really see any major issues anywhere as I keep looking further through it. The balance of black, blue, blue and white is good here. Maybe you could look for additional places to throw some black in there just so that the jersey isn't the only thing there. But at the same time, it does help it stand out on the piece. But I always like to think that you don't just put a color on a piece in one area. You try to add that same color in other places so it looks like it was meant to be there. So yeah, I think that about summarizes my feedback on this piece. Oh, another thing that I wanted to mention actually. So you do a nice job here of throwing on some shadows. Although I don't know if you'd have as much of a shadow here considering how much light there is here, but the point that I'm trying to go for here is like the shoes create shadows, but the player should also create shadows, and he's not that far up that he wouldn't be creating shadows. There should be a little bit more of a shadow going around here, I think. Lighter than the ones under the feet, of course, but it's still like it's not just the feet that would create shadows, and I think that's a common issue that people run into. So yeah, this next one is a header by for Erupt by Bayer. So the colors on this header are nice. I personally don't think you needed like this double, I think it's like a 3D text effect maybe. I don't particularly think that helped much. I would have just kept it as a solid white, like this gradient white or whatever. I would have just kept it that way without like the additional layering. But like the colors look nice. There's some good flow here. I wouldn't have put this esports management text over here because it's on the left. I would have put it in the middle here so that it's not asymmetric, because this side just looks weird to have one thing floating off to the left. So that's kind of my major critiques. Everything else seems cool. Maybe you could try to add a little bit more white into some place, so this isn't the only place where it's white, but I mean, these kind of are white-ish enough to give it some color flow. So I think those would be my main thing. And another point I want to make is that none of these pieces around here look quite 3D or anything. So then to have this text be the only 3D thing also kind of throws me off instead of in sort of like a consistency sense. Okay, so next up here we have a UI image, like a user interface image, I believe, for a certain game. So I haven't really critiqued this type of thing before, but just from, I guess, my sort of layout experience with how I try to do some of the work on the esports side of things, the organization looks clean. There's no, like, the negative space is cool and all that. Maybe if I zoom in a little bit more, I think the one thing that I would definitely change off rip is that when you have all these different types of values, some that are more important than others, one of the ways to differentiate them is, of course, through font size, but another way is to make different colored text. And I think what would have really helped here is that, like, let's say for this number, or like you know, for whatever state, you know, whether it's caution or danger or whatever, the highlighted state, let's say a white font state would be the one that you're in and stuff. So changing the font colors around so that not everything's in orange, I think that would have really been a helpful key here, and maybe increase the sizing of this. Because like even on a larger screen, I think this would still be kind of small. So unless you just intended it to be some sort of design accent, then that's fine. But otherwise, I would have tried to make this portion a little bit bigger. Everything else is fairly readable, but definitely would have changed font color. Maybe most game designs would have, like, even in a retro style like you're trying to go for here, probably have some sort of patterning in the background. So I think maybe even some glitching effect in the background, something like that. So I think that would be cool. I just get an overwhelming sense of orange that while the branding of this may be like an orange based thing, you still want to throw some other colors in there. Also, if you're going with the orange style, then maybe a light blue, pink, maybe it would work better as like a traffic stop kind of thing, red, yellow, orange, green sort of deal. That might have fit with it better, but this way also isn't better. It actually gives me, these sliders give me the retro vibe more so maybe that's what you were going for there. But overall, it's a really clean design. I didn't really have any issues with the layout as such. I guess now maybe on second thought you could move some stuff over here, maybe put mental toxicity level over here, and then this portion onto the right hand side for a little bit of balance. But yeah, overall really clean concept. Then this one is a header. So I'll start off with a couple things off the bat. It's a little bit tough to see what these logos are, especially in the blue. I almost would have, I don't know if I would have gone with their original logo colors here. I might have just gone white here and then had some sort of bar or like a rounded rectangle to allow the Mia Selena text to be a little bit different color there. And also I would have maybe moved one of the socials over here, so a social on each side of her. I think that might have been a better touch there. The blurring of the balloons is a nice touch here. The balloons, maybe, is this, I don't know if this is a drop shadow over here. But if it is, or maybe it's just an RGB split, but definitely this threw me off because in my first thought was drop shadow, and nothing ever caused a drop shadow on the sky. Even if that was an RGB effect, something to clean up there personally for me. I noticed that off rip. Overall though, like the CC on her looks fine and meshes well with this sort of lit up, you know, with this sky sort of feeling here. Another thing that threw me off was that, so this balloon is pretty clearly in front of the buildings or whatever. It looks kind of close to her, but then you have this one, which you assume is at the same scale as the other balloon, but now the string is behind the building. So now this creates a very weird depth thing for me where I'm not sure how the 3D effect is is going on. That threw me off because I would imagine this building to be a lot smaller and up here unless it's really massive. But you don't get that idea anywhere else here. Like these ones that are as far back are much smaller. So it was a really odd feeling to see that I wouldn't have put the string behind the building there. I think that's what really threw off the depth for me. Another thing is that now that I'm looking at it, this one has a decent amount of shading, which I think is okay, although this darker side might not need it to have been that dark, but you still have the shading over here. These two balloons are flat. There's really not that much shading, and this one especially, very little shading. There should still be some sort of, like, right around here, some darker shading, because, like, this portion, the outside of the balloon have to be black, whether the lighting is coming from her or from the sides. This portion down here would still show less color. So I think it's really a little bit more about scene setting here. Maybe some glow, like some edge glow right here, because it seems to be like a brightness coming from behind her. And same thing over here, but overall the head looks fairly well lit, and there's not really much I would have thought to do with the clothes here. So it's really like fixing up the balloons, but it's a really nice concept. Like the idea here gives me like almost like a it's not like a Meet the Robinsons kind of vibe, but it's a cool like futuristic kind of vibe that I think it's a nice idea for this header. Just the executional concepts. Also don't know about the idea of having a balloon right in the middle of her, like covering a part of her up. Maybe you could have put a balloon here, and then you could have gone one here, and then one a little bit higher up here, and that might have worked better. But I usually try to not cover most of the main subject as much as possible with these sort of headers, because honestly they should be like the main focus of the header to me. But yeah, it's still a cool concept that I think had a lot of potential. So just a little bit more about tweaking the executional portions there for me. Alright, this one is a esports header by Dylan for Scump. So I like the organization. It's a pretty standard organization. I like the text effect behind it, like the stroked effects. I like those. What really kind of threw me off a bit was the player coloring. It seemed a little like exposed / contrasted, but the rest of the header is a pretty flat header. So I felt like this should have just been a little flatter. This kind of cutoff here is odd, because I'm not sure what's so special about this side that would make it so green, but then to have so much lighting come from this side, it was just a little too contrasted for me seeing the rest of this like flatter green side of it. I think the player just need to be integrated a little bit more, make his facial colors a little bit flatter. But as far as like this sponsorship stuff goes, I mean these are all in white stuff, so they obviously have some sort of version like that, so that's fine. I just would not like to see, like, if you had turned any of them green when they weren't supposed to be, that would have been an issue. But like, if these are the white versions of their logos, then that's all cool. Player for Huntsman, that's all fine. Maybe give it a little bit more spacing to this Scump text, but that's more of a nitpicky thing here. Logos used fine here. The stars are a nice touch. And you have him ahead of the stuff right there. Overall, it's a pretty clean header, I think, and like you could obviously add more, make it a little bit more complex, maybe, but like a more like in your face kind of pop thing. But as far as like a clean header goes, if you tone down the contrast on Scump here, I think you have yourself a pretty nice header here. So I don't really have too much to. Yeah, it's really just the contrast on Scump, because even the sweatshirt is just too black right here. You wouldn't expect with the rest of the stuff. You wouldn't expect to see it that black. Maybe a little bit of gray thrown in, kind of deal. So I think that's my main nitpick as far as this header goes. You could try to add some lighting and stuff so it's not so flat, but it's really a matter of what vibe you wanted to go for here. So with that, I appreciate everyone who's tuned in and taking a look at the critiques. Hopefully these have helped you guys get your creative juices flow as well for things you'd want to work on in your next pieces. So yeah, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, find a way to get in touch with me if you want to submit your own piece for the next episode, whenever that'll be. Um, but yeah, with all that being said, thank you guys once again, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace.